What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we'll be joined by Andy Kamenetzsky from Locked On Lakers as we take a look at Russell Westbrook's play post All-Star break for the LA Lakers and LeBron James passing Karl Malone for second all-time on the NBA scoring list. But first, a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar, because look, when it comes to protein bars, if you haven't checked out Built Bar yet, what are you doing? You've got to check out Built Bar. They are the #1 protein bar on the market. So many amazing flavors to choose from. Every single bar is coated in 100% delicious chocolate. The flavors: raspberry, strawberry, cookies and cream, mint brownie, coconut brownie chunk is the #1 flavor that they have to offer. But hey, if that's not it for you, they've got so many other flavors to choose from. Every bar is low cal, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. Amazing if you're on a keto diet. Amazing if you're trying to cut back, lose a little bit of weight. And you can check them out. Just go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Joining us now is one half of the Locked On Lakers crew, Andy Kamenetzsky. You can follow both halves of the crew over on Twitter at Cam Brothers. Though, Andy, the Lakers are sitting at very firmly within the play-in area of the Western Conference, just a half game ahead of the New Orleans Pelicans. And this isn't exactly where the Lakers probably expected they would be when the season began. And this comes, we're recording this off the backs of a weekend slate for the Lakers, a win against the Raptors, a loss against the Wizards. And in that game against the Raptors, we kind of saw, I think, kind of the duality of what is Russell Westbrook, right? A guy who at his best can single-handedly keep you in a game, win you a game, gets the steal in the closing seconds, hits the three, forces the overtime. What has it been like kind of seeing this Lakers team struggle with the polarizing level of play out of Russell Westbrook, especially post All-Star break, who at one point he was shooting 9% from three, and since then that number has ticked up quite a bit, thankfully. But what's it been like just seeing this Lakers team try to work with what they've got with Russell Westbrook?
Well, I mean, that sequence that you mentioned against the Raptors, like that, I think is sort of a summation of everything Laker fans have felt with Westbrook, and maybe the most positive possible version of it, because you mentioned that he gets that steal and he hits the three that sends the game into overtime. Lakers end up winning in overtime. But right before that, Russ had grabbed an offensive rebound from LeBron missing a three. That's good. Then he put up a really unnecessary three, wildly missed it, bad. But then he got the steal, went up court to hit that three. That's good. But he almost had his foot on the line for a two, which would have been, while doing all this stuff in real time really quick, that would have been bad. You're still down one. And either way, it's a shot you don't want Russ ever taking, and you never feel good about it in the first place. So that's just this stew of everything going on right now with Laker fans and this team with Russ. Since the All-Star break, he's had a few good games, the one that the Lakers lost recently against the Rockets, the fact that they lost to your team, no offense. It completely overshadowed the fact that Russ played really well in that game. He had probably the best performance of any Laker in that game. And he's had a couple nice games lately. He shot well in Saturday's loss to Washington, but for the most part, it hasn't been any better than before the break. And there had been this hope that Westbrook would carry this recent trend that he's had over the last few years. Saw it in Houston, saw it with Washington, where he's a member of a new team, and it takes him about a half to really feel comfortable, find his place. And then the second half, his play really turns up. And that has not happened with the Lakers anywhere close to a consistent basis.
At this point, with how the season has gone, Andy, what are the playoff expectations for this Lakers team?
Short. I mean,
it's tough, right? Because you're in a position with so many guys on the team where it clearly, it's you can't exactly be sending a message of championship or bust with how the season has gone.
Well, we're much closer to bust, Jackson. Right now, it's feeling like, if it has not already busted, you are in bust adjacent territory. I mean, the Lakers have not won 2 games in a row since January 7th, and if you want to put the most positive spin on it, it was a 4-game winning streak without AD. Anthony Davis was hurt at this point. He still isn't available. Don't know exactly when he's going to be back, but we do know for sure there's not going to be a ton of time for him to get back in the swing of things with the team to, start redeveloping that chemistry with LeBron. So it's hard to feel optimistic about their chances, but let's just say that they find their first 2-game winning streak in the play-in, because it is almost definite that they're going to end up having to win 2 in a row from either the 9 or the 10 spot. They're going to end up facing off against Phoenix, most likely. Phoenix has been killing them. I mean, not just because they're a better team, but the Lakers don't match up well with them. Phoenix can play really any style that they want, trying to counter the Lakers. It doesn't feel like this is setting up for some type of historical, I cannot believe what just effing happened run.
So, and I'm glad you went there with the matchup against Phoenix, because at this point, it doesn't really feel like, even if the Lakers do manage to escape the play-in and make it to the actual playoffs and they're lined up in a 7-game series, it doesn't feel like the team on the other end of the bracket, in this case, more than likely the Phoenix Suns, it doesn't really feel like the Suns should be afraid of the Lakers at this point. If anything, they probably look at that as an easy first round out at this point.
Well, I mean, they may look at it as something where they could ease Chris Paul back in. And, the Lakers and Suns had their history from last season. And, there's the debate about what would have happened had Anthony Davis been healthy. AD recently, I think, really lit a fire under the Suns before their most recent game, saying that if he had been healthy, they know they would have won that series, but also the Suns know they would have won that series. And that's where I think it actually was a bridge too far from Phoenix's perspective. And Devin Booker said afterwards that he thought those comments were just disrespectful, but also totally unnecessary. Like, why go there, particularly with a team that is better than you? Like, you don't need to give them any motivation. But they could look at this as a situation where, we can play Chris Paul some reduced minutes, or maybe give him, if he happens to need, more time before he feels really ready to get on the court, let's play half the series without him, see what happens. Chris Paul was actually hurt during that series. It's easy to forget because there's so much focus on Anthony Davis and the Lakers were defending their title. But this could be something where Phoenix looks at it as both advantageous and also, we are going to relish kicking these guys' ass because we don't like them, and we feel like they and the rest of the league don't give us enough props for what we did last year getting to the finals.
Andy, less than a week after becoming the first player ever to record 10,000 points, rebounds, and assists, LeBron finally, notches his spot at, second on the all-time scoring list, just in NBA history. And he did it in 113 less games than Karl Malone. Do you ever just sit back in awe of what LeBron James has accomplished, what he continues to do on a nightly basis, and the fact that we may never see another player of his caliber again?
I wouldn't even feel any hesitation with saying won't see another player like this, because the amount of skill that's required, longevity that's required, versatility of skill set, all these different things that have gone into LeBron's career. And the idea of doing it at this level, like, there's no template for what LeBron is doing right now. Like, I remember I wrote for a few years covering the Lakers for The Athletic. And I remember writing a piece before LeBron's first season with the Lakers about the need to reduce his minutes because, the basically what was being asked of him, like the type of responsibilities that he had with that type of mileage was unprecedented. That was 4 years ago. And we're still seeing this.
And he hasn't slowed down.
Yeah, that was a piece I wrote in 2018. And these are discussions that you can still have and frankly should have in 2022 when LeBron's health is becoming more precarious. His availability isn't a given the way it used to be. But he's 37 years old. He's averaging like a tick under 30 points a game. He might win a scoring title. And, you'll hear detractors say that he's just padding his stats. He's stat chasing, going after numbers. I mean, the Lakers need him to score this to literally win. Like they don't win games unless he puts up gaudy numbers. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, you think that he is just out there trying to pad his numbers. That is really hard to do anyway. Like, most NBA players are not capable of chasing those type of numbers if they made that their entire goal every single time they stepped on a court. Like, it's only like the upper 1% of guys who ever enter the league that could even attempt to do something like what LeBron's doing if you want to be that cynical about it. Like, it's amazing.
It really, I mean, I think I'm going to have to agree with you there, Andy. We probably won't ever see another player like LeBron again, but it's just, as he passes these milestones, I think it's important for fans of the NBA, regardless of team affiliation, whatever, just to try and appreciate the greatness that we're seeing while it's on display right now before it's gone, whenever that may be, because LeBron may be entering his, fifth prime here in the not so distant future. But you're going to have us covered for everything. Obviously, LeBron James, where the Lakers find themselves in the play-in tournament, what their first round matchup is going to be over at Locked On Lakers. I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me, Andy.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.